It is 3 o'clock sharp, so I will take this month's gavel. The virtual events group always starts our meetings with this month's vegetable. And we will have a good time today vegging out. It is March. It is a full year since we've had our lives changed. I wouldn't exactly call this.
You want me to call you when this is done?
Yeah.
I'll call you back on Teams.
And I'm going to have everybody mute themselves.
Do you want me to call you back on Teams?
Because we don't want to be on Teams now. So I wouldn't call March a celebration, but it does mark a turning point for us all, I think, towards some light after an incredibly trying year. And as I look at all of you in these windows, I just want to say congratulations. If you had a family meeting, if you had a birthday party, if you had a wedding, if you had South by Southwest, if you had umbrella thing like I went to this morning, congratulations. Biz Bash. This industry has turned on a dime so creatively and so in unison, bolstering each other along the way. So we started the VEG group, or the virtual events group, to kind of help lift all boats. We started to review every platform out there. Believe it or not, there are over 200 platforms just to host an event on. We started to look at the tools that will help you create better events, from ticketing to CRM to monetization. And we started to look at the production services that people are choosing and review it all in a context. And so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'm going to share one screen with you. Let's say I'm going to share this one. Right?
Interesting.
And make sure that we're all on the same page here. Whoop, it's not right, of course. Okay. So we have an agenda for today. And I do want to put attention back to go to the website and check out last October when we started these VEG meetups. You can watch Jim Louderback, who I'm sure is in a window somewhere here. Jim talked about having to cancel an event for VidCon, the influencer gathering, and turn it into a series of daily events. Brent Bushnell then joined us to talk about taking a physically immersive play place and turning it into a series of events. And it goes on from there. Ben Hinman from Splash. We've had Marianne Pierce. We've had some great speakers join us. So a couple of updates. If you go to the website, yes, you all love reading reviews, but really what you wanted was a top 10 list. We're pretty confident that we've picked out some great platforms, tools, and production services to be in your top 10 list, but we'd love to hear from you. So please go there, bang on it, tell us your opinions. This is a community site for collective intelligence. We also need your opinion if you've used any of the products and categories. And of course, we want you to sign up for our newsletter because it's the most fun thing I do all week these days. And if you have news for the newsletter, happy to report on it. We will be rolling out membership packages, surprise, surprise. And again, we'd love you to bang on them. Tell us if they meet your needs and if we can help you along in what you do. Next month, April 22nd, is our monthly VEG meetup. And we're going to have Victor Torregrossa, who I think is in a window here somewhere as well. Victor's at Intel. He thought he'd seen everything, being at Intel since, I think, 2001. But this year he had to think pretty quickly. And we're going to have a new mingle experience for those of you who were here last month. We all jumped into Twine. Next month, it is Mixtros, to see how you feel about serendipitous engagements on the web. On April 29th, we're teaming up with our good friends at Sprocket. I know I saw Bill Whiteside here. I think Dan Cole is here, Harry Glazer, Nicole Marsalis, to create a new kind of event, a kind of let's meet the players in this virtual media world and introduce them to our friends in the corporate VC and association world that might need their services. So it's going to be conversations as well as immersive demos so that you can all feel more at home with these new tools That invite is by invitation only. And we've got Julie Sylvester's name up there. If you want to attend, just email her and we'll figure something out. And finally, I want to say thanks to not just my team, which is on the top row here, because we all pulled together to make this website and create a taxonomy for these products happen, but also to our board of advisors who's shepherded us, and special call out to Sherry Huss for arranging Freeman and Bob Priest-Heck to join us today. And I'm so excited that they are sharing their knowledge, because nobody has better knowledge. So I'm going to leave you with one thought before we jump into things. And this has been on my mind a lot this week. I had my first lunch last week and almost had a nervous breakdown going to my business lunch, because the pandemic for all of us was a shared experience. The recovery, I think, is going to be much more of an individual experience based on our geography, on our risk tolerance, on our age, on a whole bunch of factors that we're going to talk about with Bob as we go on. So with that, I need to stop this video and wish you luck in all of your different adventures as we re-emerge in some sort. And I think we all know that we will re-emerge differently. So I do want to invite Bob, but before I do, I want to stop sharing for a minute. I'm on two screens. I'm going to stop share. And this is the most important part of any VEG group. I'm going to, first of all, if you're new to VEG, just put your hand up in a window and let me just like scroll by and say, thank you so much for making the time out of what are crazy schedules. Thank you, Greg Higgins. It's great to see you. And Denzel, I so appreciate it. And the second most important question is, which VEG hat do you like better? Don't vote until I give you choices, but just raise your hands. There's VEG hat number 1, the Carmen Miranda look, or my newest Etsy find, VEG hat number 2, the seed packet look. You can raise your hands or you can put it in the chat window, and pretty soon everybody's going to have a VEG hat, and I'm just going to keep collecting them. So with that, I really do want to introduce Bob, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. Bob and I have met and re-met and unmet over the years. I used to think of him as the guy I just bought coffee from, or move things, handle my drayage, but it turns out we've known each other for different events throughout our lives. Bob was an early contributor, little known fact, to Mosaic, which became Netscape Navigator. He then moved to Japan to start Networld Interop, which became the marketplace, really the whole model for disruptive technology events. He built Java 1 with some other folks when he was working at Sun Microsystems. And now he has either the most enviable or non-enviable job in the world. Bob is the CEO of Freeman. And as we've all had to pivot and change how we do business, I don't think there's anybody who's had to spend as much time thinking about the future as Bob Priest-Heck. So with that, I'm going to ask you, I think it's probably best for you if you want to put yourself in speaker view. We will have polling questions and we will break you out into smaller groups with Freeman folks. But I think unless you love roaming through the crowds, mute yourselves, go into speaker view, and let me call Bob up on the stage. And Bob, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Robin. It's really nice to join everybody. Thank you. Yes,
we won't talk about, we were supposed to rehearse the other night, but we just went back in time over how many shows we've actually done together. But I do want you, because I call Freeman like the blind man and the elephant. Everybody knows Freeman, but they've touched a different part. Some think it's the people that deliver coffee, some build their booths. So why don't you start with sort of giving us the landscape of Freeman and its many tentacles?
Sure. I think most people know Freeman for our logistics capabilities. So obviously we are really the engine behind most of the trade shows in North America and increasingly a global footprint as well, big industry meetings. But really it goes well beyond that. So if it's in person or virtual, we really are the primary provider of event strategy, event research, uh, agency services, digital tools, and AV, event tech, and logistics. So we really touch all facets of the industry. And the company is nearing its 100-year anniversary. So we're still a family-run or family-owned and operated business. I'm actually the first non-family CEO. I timed that really well, and so, we really, some people might think of us as the guys who overcharge you for a trash can on a trade show floor, but we actually do quite a bit more.
Thanks. So how many of you, just show of hands in windows, everybody's worked with Freeman at some point in their long storied careers? And like Bob, didn't marry into the family, but let's go back to March 2020. Tell us where you were and what you were thinking about moving forward. Like,
Yeah.
relive that moment.
Really? Do I have to? I'm just kidding. It's interesting. We started seeing a shift in our business in Asia right away, obviously. So we have an agency in China, throughout Southeast Asia, and we saw an immediate impact on that business. And by early February, we'd really assembled our global enterprise risk team together to start thinking about what was in store for us. What should we expect from this? With the time was not a pandemic, it was an epidemic. And it was really strange because the minute it really hit full tilt for us, I was in an offsite, and I actually pulled it out for today, and it was called Box 3, which was an offsite that Freeman was doing with its executive leadership. And we were in Big Sur. And so this was the week of February 24th. And I was disrupted from the meeting when our head of enterprise risk called an emergency meeting to say, look, we think this is, potentially going to be a pandemic. And, it was startling. But what's even more incredible is that we were at this offsite in Ventana with a small group of our leaders to really talk about a hypothesis of disruption. And in fact, I can't read you the whole thing because we don't have enough time, but basically we need to be we need to be the disruptor. We need to challenge how we think, how we do things, how our industry will look if we started from scratch, even if it means actually starting from scratch, because that's what disruptors do. So it's so kind of amazing that we were having this conversation. We obviously didn't predict the pandemic. We were talking about sustainability, technology disruption. We were talking about shifts that were happening in society. We were talking about generational shifts, but it really prepared us. And I was telling Robin the other night, we'd also just finished for our board a basically recession plan, which is just good corporate hygiene to always have a plan in your drawer. And so we had both of these plans going into, what has turned out to be, probably the hardest year in the company's history. We did survive World War II and the Great Depression and lots of other things over the years, but the company didn't have this kind of global scale back then. And, a lot of people are depending on us. So, Freeman typically W-2s over 50,000 people a year. We have, not 5-year or 10-year, 20-year clients. We have 50, 60-year-old clients in some cases that have been with us for that long, and no one wanted to disappoint them. So we immediately went into this, how do we preserve our customer mode? And we knew it was going to be traumatic. And we knew that to do that, we had to really do the best we could for our own people, because that's what customers appreciate about Freeman is its people and its culture and its values. And so every decision we made had to still be in line with those values. And it was very hard because this is a big a big company and it burns a lot of cash. And when it's not operating, you have to reduce the burn. And so we ended up reducing more than 80% of our staff within about a 60-day window through a combination of permanent reduction and a large group of
Technology
furloughed
innovation.
employees. So we are still operating in that status, although I'm very pleased to say we started to bring people back. So, and for us, it was just really important that we treated people the way we'd want to be treated during that period. So we did extended benefits. We found a legal loophole that we could do a supplemental unemployment for furloughed employees for some period of time. And we've tried really, really hard to stay in touch with those folks, because I personally believe the companies that will do well into the future are going to be the companies who can scale back up as the industry returns. And that's, again, for us, all about people. So kind of a long answer, but that's kind of that was my reality. That was what we were. And, it was, again, I think for anybody who's in this business in this way, it was a 7-day-a-week, 18-hour-a-day task for a couple of months to do it with care. But I'm really pleased about how we've done it.
You just unpacked so much. So if people have questions, feel free to enter them in the chat room. Most important to me, the thing you said about it was easier to scale down than it may be to scale up, which people are about to start doing now. The other thing is, and everybody, mark Bob's words here, contingency is part of planning. Like, if you don't have a contingency, you're not a planner. And I think this pandemic has showed us that in spades. So Freeman has been actually out there all year, I think, talking to their various stakeholders and clients, and did a big sentiment study to see how people felt. And so we're going to give you one of their questions in our poll, and we're going to ask you to see how well you dovetail with Freeman's thousands of people who took this survey. So first polling question is, what % of business attendees plan to return to events in the fall if vaccinated? We'll give you a couple of seconds to weigh in on that. This is a really smart audience.
We'll see how we go.
Okay, Carrie, let's see how they dovetail. We'll end polling. And the majority of you got that right. A full 78% of people feel that they will attend an event this fall if they're vaccinated. And so, Bob, yeah,
can I add something on that, Robin, if you don't mind? So that was something I left out. I apologize. But the other thing we did was we quickly assembled our research team. So we have a research team within Freeman. It's part of our strategy and insights group that has about 60+ years of industry data. And we quickly started doing sentiment studies. And the sentiment studies we had a base of about 1 million people on the panel. We would run a survey every 6 to 8 weeks. We would basically hit about 200,000 of the 1 million every 6 to 8 weeks. And that was a cross section of corporate marketers, exhibitors, which we consider more transactional. They're still part of the corporate marketer, but they are different decision makers, plus attendees, plus organizers. And we did that across every vertical. And so we started to really get a good view of where the industry was. And at first, of course, we ran our first one in April, basically, and we're on wave 10 or 11 now. I've lost track now, but we've done quite a bit. And it's been interesting to watch. The data has been 100% right. So of that 2 million, we've now had responses from close to 100,000 people with a very minimal plus minus margin of error rate, like 1.2% for one category, maybe up to 2% for another category. But the thing that was interesting is every time we would get the results of the research, we would be like, oh, we lost a quarter. And then our book would follow. And you're talking about a big book. You're talking about billions of dollars of revenue. It would just push out a quarter. It would push out a quarter. It would push out a quarter. And then around wave 6, we started to see some stabilizing. And then, really, we saw it start to hold steady around wave 8, 7 or 8, something like that. And, the vaccine announcement, really cemented things. And now, we have not moved. If anything, it's actually moved slightly more aggressive. But it's, the value of data and making data-driven decisions has been so critical during this period of time. It's very easy to get emotional or to over or underreact. And so the use of data was very, very helpful for us. And I think you can feel pretty confident in those stats at this point. I think we are going to see a pretty good return this fall.
And we will put a link to some of Freeman's data from this into the chat window, and we'll have a slide up at the end, and urge you all to go to the website and to check out the advice that they are offering. So now here we are at the present. Let's do short-term look. And first we're going to poll the audience. I bet this one's kind of a giveaway, but we're going to look at their sentiments about what your folks said was highest on their list in terms of returning to events. So what was the most asked about topic when returning to events today? Oh, I see. Yeah. And we'll give that a few seconds. And we're ready to look at that results. And yes, everybody is there on health and safety. 84% of you right in line with Freeman's folks and saying health and safety. Let's just say, yeah, they're not asking about the buffet or the swag right now. They're asking, right?
It's the number one question. And it's interesting. While we were waiting to come on, I was teasing that Sherry has a hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs over her shoulder. And I'm a big Maslow guy. And we're, like all things in life, we always end up back on the hierarchy of needs, because at the end of the day, food, water, shelter, safety, security are prerequisite to doing all of the cool things that we want to be doing. We first have to feel like they're safe. And we can see it in our web searches. We can see the hits on our own freeman.com. We have probably the largest resource of health and safety information. I will say the industry has done a phenomenal job of collaborating. If it's the venues, if it's been the hotels, if it's been the different suppliers, everybody has really come together, and we have really good guidelines across the industry that are very consistent. So we actually also started with a group of industry partners, something called Go Live Together. And we've been really set up camp in Washington to try to educate our legislators on the importance of business events. And, probably something that should have happened a long time ago, but quite frankly, wasn't happening at the level it needed to. And we actually just hired our first lobbyist on the ground inside the Beltway in DC that's full-time working for the Exhibition and Conference Alliance, which really makes up business events. And it's been really interesting because we've been able to educate legislators that we can open events safely. If we deploy the right protocols, we really do it in a good way, we can safely open events. And we're really making progress, and you're going to see more. We worked with an infectious disease data company, and we built a data model so we could look at, when you apply these safety features, what's the outcome? What's the mathematical outcome? And then how does that compare to spread or risk? And I think these kinds of risk management approaches are going to become permanent. I think, COVID, we'll never leave, but we'll learn to live with it. But I think we're going to have to start thinking much more thoughtfully about risk around any sort of gathering.
So when you think about a fall event, we're getting lots of questions in, and I think I'm going to turn it over to the audience soon. But when you think about a fall event, describe what you see. Super large, Houston and Orlando only, Las Vegas, testing, contactless. Give us a sense of, and
there's
the
a lot. Yeah, there's a lot there. So let me first start by saying that, we've already been running events in the Southeast. So the Southeast has been more open. They're smaller. They have absolutely been smaller, much more focused. What you're seeing, and I was teasing Robin, it's like, oh, we're going back to the 90s. It's really more about quality over quantity, which for me has never been a bad thing. When I was an organizer, I used to use that as a selling point, right? Do you want a lot of people or do you want the right people? And so I think you're going to see a big focus on quality of audience versus quantity of audience. I think we're going to be in a bridge period for a while. So, what we're experiencing right now is not what the future is, and we're not going back to the past. So we're in a bridge period. And I think that what we're going to see events probably be half of what they were in 2019 for, call it, the next 12 months, 18 months maybe. And then you're going to see things progress from there. And of course, this depends on the industry and the vertical. That was the other thing that I would say about our research, is that it was everyone was all in it together, kind of to your opening, Robin. And then in this last couple of waves of research, things started to splinter based on your industry, based on if you're in a textile, fashion, manufacturing type business, you really have to get back to in-person events sooner than maybe a medical professional or some other types of industries. So we saw the verticals start to kind of pull apart and say, well, we're going to do our own thing. And then, of course, we are moving to a new omni-channel multimedia model. Again, what we've experienced over the last year is really not what I believe the future is going to look like. I think this was, a lot of stopgap moments where we had to, try to produce the equivalent of in-person events online. And I don't think that's practical. I think what you're going to see is a lot more virtual programming, but it's going to feel more like this. It's going to feel like bite-sized chunks of content, highly targeted. Data is going to be more important than ever. We've talked about it for a long time, but we're going to have to be able to customize and contextualize these different options for people. We're going to see a greater use of broadcast and broadcasting out messages. We did a beautiful piece for the CEO of AMD around CES. And it was a one-to-many message, and that's okay when you're setting strategy, when you're and then you're going to see much more targeted conversations. And then the in-person event, I think, will actually become the most valuable thing we do. And I like to tease that, time is more valuable than money. Ben Franklin got it wrong. And when people vote with their time, they're your highest value audience. But we have to build strategies that include all of those mediums. And I dislike, even though you can find it on our website, I dislike the concept of hybrid. I think hybrid implies that you're doing one thing multiple ways, and that's not what I think the future holds. I think the future is much more about thinking about each medium and developing an integrated strategy to leverage it. One of the coolest things I've seen about the virtual experience over the past year is that, in the beginning, you saw a lot of traditional event attendees, but over time, the research started showing that you were actually reaching new audiences. And so it's becoming a great place to test new verticals, test new markets, really amplify your message, share your content more broadly. And I think that's how we have to start thinking about designing things in the future.
So there are so many great questions coming in that I may just bug out, but I'm going to ask you our last polling question because I found it so fascinating to see people's pent-up attitude. Some people will say we're about to enter the roaring 20s, and some people say they're experiencing FOGO, fear of going out. And I think let's take a look at this polling question and see if you can guess what the Freeman sentiment was here. What's the distance you're willing to drive to participate in an in-person event today? I don't even like driving out my driveway. Okay, so we'll put this, okay, so a small number of you were right. It's 1,100 miles, right? You will actually get in your car and drive halfway across the country or some other country to go and attend an event. Is that right, Bob? That's what you guys found. There is.
Well, yeah, and again, I think this is a tactical example of this bridge period. I think that's what some people are willing to do right now to travel. But I think that that's going to quickly change. And in fact, I just saw some information yesterday that suggested jet fuel prices have gone up quite a bit, and the airlines are predicting now a much faster return than they were early in the pandemic. I sit on the U.S. Travel CEO roundtable, and it was terrible at the beginning of the pandemic. It was going to be many, many years before air travel returned, and now they're saying, well, leisure travel is I mean, you go just for fun, try to book a flight. I mean, with the reduced capacity and the increased demand, it's actually quite hard and quite expensive. And so you're going to see more flights being added. We're producing an event series for one of the large airlines over the next couple of weeks, where instead of laying off 10,000 people, they're trying to bring back 12,000 people. And so they flipped a switch. And I think this is really what you're talking about, Robin, is this, like, the sentiment is not only personalized, but it's changing every day. I feel differently today than I did yesterday, and I'm willing to take a different action than I thought I would have ever 3 weeks ago or a month ago. And that's where I think in all of our businesses, we're going to have to be more agile than ever. Agility is really going to be a real critical ingredient to, I think, the future in general. But during this transition period, I think it's going to be an absolute requirement that you're willing to be agile.
To the max. Yes,
Yeah.
to the max. So let's, I see the audience is just loading up with questions, and let me see if somebody wants to, Greg Higgins, are you out there? And can we ask you to ask your question?
Yeah, I'm out here. Hi, everyone.
Hi, nice to see you.
Thanks, Robin. Hi, Bob.
Hey, Greg.
So you're kind of speaking to this, just which I love to hear, but I get a lot of value from Freeman's thought leadership, strategy, insights, and I was just wondering about how you think about guiding your clients in measuring their program success, now, but then also as they go through the next 12 months. I really love the thought of evolving hybrid to more of an integrated strategy. It really speaks to that measurement being probably different across each medium, but I'd love if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah. So it's something that's personally really important to me. Freeman had a strategy practice long before this pandemic, and we had a digital practice long before this pandemic, and we had an agency practice long before this pandemic. And all of those things have accelerated during this pandemic. So while our logistics business has gone down, our strategy, which includes research, insights, data analytics, that business has blown up. Our advisory business has blown up. Our creative and agency business has blown up. In fact, those were loss leaders for years in Freeman, and they're profit drivers in this market right now.
Wow.
Tony Lorenz would be happy to hear that, because he was part of the early innovation of Freeman going into this space. So that needs to become the new norm. And to be honest, I'd been evangelizing that. Freeman had been evangelizing that for years before this pandemic. And some clients would buy into it, and some clients would be like, I'm doing pretty well. We have good, re-sign rates. Our sponsors come back. We make a lot of money, or we drive our message forward, or whatever their objectives were. I don't know. Corporates are more accustomed to buying those types of services. Organizers, not so much. I think everyone's had a bit of a wake-up call to say, I need to go into this event and I need to have a clear strategy for, do I know what beautiful looks like for all the major sponsors in this event? Am I clear on why attendees are picking this medium over that medium? Can I measure the success of this so we can talk about where investment dollars get allocated? I mean, this is going to be the new conversation. It's not new, by the way, but it's new in the sense that people have finally awoken to like how critical this is going to be. And if you want marketing spend, if you want there's going to be more opportunity than there's ever been before. But if you want that share wallet, you better be prepared to do exactly that. And, you know, my goal has been to build services that can help and support our customers as they go down that journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for asking, Greg. Good to see you. Mark Matthias, are you on the call where we can find you? You had a bunch of questions. If not, I can ask them for you.
No, I am here.
There you go. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Bob, good to see you. My name is Mark Matthias. I am here in Connecticut and have produced for a number of years an event here in Connecticut called Maker Faire Connecticut. And two real questions for you. Are looking for, I'll just read the questions that I put in there. As in-person events start to occur, where do you see online events supplementing or competing with in-person events? That's part number one. And part two is, moving an in-person event online seems to be the wrong use of an online medium. What do you think online events should look like?
Yeah, well, I violently agree with number two, for sure. I think it's the wrong medium. And again, that's where I was starting to go with, I think in this pandemic period, people kind of did that. It was a stopgap measure. We didn't have a lot of other choices. And I think what you saw was mixed results. The Net Promoter Scores have actually gotten better as the pandemic has gone on. We measure virtual Net Promoter Score. It's gotten better, but you know, the truth is you don't program online the way you program in person. So it's completely logical that would be a low value experience. What it has been good for, even in this kind of stopgap measure, is, you know, education's gone pretty well. I would say networking and commerce have gone pretty bad. People just don't feel like they're getting the value in that porting a live or an in-person event to an online environment. What I think we're going to see in the future is, and I have this beautiful wheel. I think it's on our website. You can look at it. But you know, we're going to see this integrated approach, and what we're going to see, we might have some correlation. You know, we might we might broadcast from a physical event, but what you're really going to do is use virtual. I always say, like, hey, I want to talk to supply chain managers, and I want to really talk to them about a very specific topic. I'm going to have a lot of virtual programming that supports that, and I'm going to, again, use data to connect that audience, and I'm going to test new verticals. I'm going to look to expand the audience. The number one, but this is pre-pandemic, because we know this hasn't been real during the pandemic. We haven't had enough live events to know this, but we knew it for the people who were practicing this way before. Number one attendee marketing tool for a live or in-person event was a virtual program. So, you know, people get a taste and they want to go back. So we're just going to see all these things operating in an integrated fashion, not necessarily definitely not one on top of the other. So, and if you think about it, you can really, and even in an association, so let's take an organizer that's an association, they very rarely have more than 10 or 20% of their membership at their event. I know Tony, because I know Tony's tried multiple formats of fixing that. But they rarely do. They might have 20% of their membership if they're lucky. And so what about the other 80%? How are you communicating with them? How are you sharing content? How are you amplifying the message? How are you connecting that community? I actually think this pandemic might ultimately be good for the association model, because it's shaken things up in a way that you can think differently about your role as an association. So kind of a long answer, sorry, but that's how I see it.
No, it's really fantastic. And since I look at industries other than the events industry, you're seeing it in retail, you're seeing it in health, you're seeing it in finance, this omni-channel. Let's make it a club that lasts all year long, for lack of a better word, and tremendous opportunities. We had a great question from Margaret Baus. Margaret, do you want to jump on? And I know where you're coming from.
So a couple of different things. So I'm physically in Florida. Personnel wise, I'm a corporate marketer. I've done some small virtual events. And then on the advisor side, I advise some tech companies that are involved in events management. So mine was more of an observation. that I think, when you're talking about how 80+% of folks were interested in health and safety, I think there's some things that we know are going to stay on for at least a while. Contactless types of customer experiences, I think, are going to be really important. And then on the other side, some sort of physical entry, security, temperature taking, those kinds of things to allow people into the physical venues. So for me, it was just more of a observation. And I'm just curious what Bob and others, think about that in terms of how do we make people feel safe and secure in the environment.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think some of these things will have a long lasting effect. And, there were other infectious diseases, by the way, that we carried around with us before COVID-19. And, in fact, it's a really interesting thing. Just as a side note, I've reinstituted sick days at Freeman. So, we had an integrated PTO policy for a long, long time, where we just treated your time off and you're sick as just one big bucket. So what does that do? It encourages people not to take a sick day, to go to work when you're sick. In fact, somebody like Bob Priestek might have actually said, you can be sick at home or you can be sick at work. We need you in the meeting. And that was the wrong answer. And I was wrong for doing that. And so I think that there's a heightened sensitivity. So we, by the way, have gone to unlimited PTO with sick days. So we want you to stay home when you're sick. In whatever the new office environment is. And I think that we're going to see, to your point, Margaret, these safety protocols stay around events. I think there's lots of work we've been doing with different groups around a passport, a health passport. I don't know if that'll stick in America. Other countries, like a lot of other countries that are socialized or communist, have digital health passports already. But for our own protection, maybe we'll see more of that. And I think we'll become blind to it. I don't want to, I hate to reference a negative period like 9/11, but look what we all grew to accept with security and enhanced security over time. So I think, temperature checks, health questionnaires, things like that are going to become, I think, normal. And I don't think it's a bad thing, because what it does is it makes you conscious about, am I healthy? Am I being responsible? Am I doing the right thing?
So I want everybody to get to spend some time in the various rooms. But Bob, when I asked you just off the cuff last night, I said, so give me 5 things people can walk away from. You had no problem doing that. Can you do that again?
I can try.
Give us the 5 things we should walk out of this conversation with.
Well, I think the first thing I already said, which is agility. Like, people are going to have to be comfortable being agile. I would say that there is, in the backdrop of all of the pandemic, and just kind of all the things we've dealt with, an economic crisis, an appropriate demand for equality. I mean, there's so many, an environmental crisis, but in the behind all of these things we're very aware of is a massive generational shift as well. And so you're going to have to make sure your businesses get digitized. And I don't mean just digital experiences like this. I mean the way people engage with you. We're quickly approaching a period where baby boomers and Gen Xers are a lesser part of the workforce, and millennials and Gen Z take over. So I think, thinking about how to digitize your business to really serve new buyers is going to be really important. And then that leads to the third thing for me, which is about data and the use of data, because we live in a hyper personalized, contextualized world. And then I go back again to a long time ago and say, number 4 is content. Content is going to be more critical than ever, and making sure you're serving up the right content to the right person at the right moment, in the way they want to receive it is table stakes. That's going to be expected. And I don't remember my 5th one, but was it about hope? Be hopeful, be happy. It's okay. We'll get through it. So, I think it's okay to be happy. So try.
Of course, it's on my other sheet of paper, but
Yeah.
so can we just, I know this is lame, but just give a hand to Freeman and Bob for sharing their wisdom and their thought. They think about this all the time, so kind of we don't all have to. And what I was most amazed about the conversation was that you'd actually been thinking about disrupting events before they needed to be disrupted. And it was kind of forced honest, but you were already rethinking what the purpose of an event should be, what the outcomes we desired. So I'd like you to meet some other folks from Freeman. Bob's going to stick around also. It's randomized, so you're never going to know where you're going to end up. But do, share your hopes, because I think there's a lot to hope for. Your worry about expenses, because I think there's a lot to worry about too. And the fact that just take a moment to celebrate how we have come through this year together. So head to your breakout rooms, meet some more folks, each other and Freeman. And if you can stick around to the end, I'll just wrap it up. If you can't, totally understood. See you on April 22nd. Breakout rooms? Yeah, we're all back. And I just wanted to share my screen so you can all, if you didn't get this yet, this is where you can go for more information about what Freeman has done, and really, as I've spent this week with them, shout outs to just sort of holding our hand through this process. I don't know about what you did in the breakout rooms, but so many things we didn't talk about, travel budgets for the fall, some of the new products and tools that we're seeing, some of the hybrids. So please join us again next month, April 22nd. We'll talk to Intel. We'll network with Mixtros. And once again, I can't thank Freeman enough for sponsoring and joining us in this event and sharing just how much they know. And with that, we are only 1 minute over. What's that? Did I hear somebody? Nope. Okay, with that, we are going to let you all have a great weekend, whether you're celebrating whatever spring holiday you celebrate or just plain old spring. Have a good one. Keep innovating, and thank you for sharing an hour of your day with VEG. Oh, wait, and I'll go out with the #1 seller. There you go.
Thanks, Robin.
Thanks, Robin.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
everyone.
Take care.
Thank you
so much,
Bye, Robin.
Good one.